The room was silent except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. Angela sat beside her husband's hospital bed, holding his hand so tightly that her fingers ached. She hadn't slept more than a few hours in days. The fluorescent lights overhead seemed harsher than usual, and the smell of disinfectant hung heavily in the air. Michael looked nothing like the strong, energetic man she had married 28 years earlier. Just 3 weeks ago, he had been mowing the lawn, teasing their grandchildren, and making plans for a family vacation. Now he lay motionless, connected to tubes and machines. The doctors had done everything they could. At least that's what they kept telling her. Angela stared at Michael's face and whispered, "Please don't leave me." A tear slid down her cheek. Just then, the door opened. Dr. Peterson stepped inside. His expression told her everything before he even spoke. He pulled a chair close and sat down. "Mrs. Johnson," he said softly, "I'm afraid there isn't much more we can do." Angela felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean?" she asked. The doctor took a deep breath. "His organs are beginning to fail. The infection isn't responding to treatment. We've exhausted our options." Angela shook her head. "No, I'm sorry." "No," she repeated, louder this time. "You're telling me my husband is dying?" The doctor looked down. "We believe he has very little time left." The words hit her like a freight train. Very little time left. The room seemed to spin. She wanted to scream. She wanted to wake up from the nightmare. Instead, she sat frozen as tears streamed down her face. The doctor gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "I wish I had better news." Then he quietly left the room. Angela sat there alone. For several minutes she couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. She stared at Michael. This couldn't be happening, not to them. Not after everything they'd been through together. Not after raising 3 children. Not after building a life filled with dreams, struggles, victories, and love. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Then something happened. A memory surfaced. Years earlier, when their youngest daughter had been seriously ill, Michael had looked at her and said something she would never forget. "When medicine reaches its limit, God hasn't reached his." At the time, their daughter had recovered. Angela had thanked God and moved on. But now those words came rushing back. When medicine reaches its limit, God hasn't reached his. She slowly lifted her head. For the first time all day she prayed. Not a polished prayer, not a fancy prayer, just an honest one. "God, I don't know what to do." Her voice trembled. "The doctors say there's no hope. But if you still have a plan, if you still have a purpose, please help my husband." She squeezed Michael's hand. "Please." That night she stayed by his side. She prayed and prayed and prayed. The next morning her pastor arrived. Then church members began showing up. Friends came. Family came. People started praying in hospital hallways, praying in waiting rooms, praying in parking lots. Some prayed from hundreds of miles away. A chain of prayer spread farther than Angela could imagine. Still, Michael showed no signs of improvement. Day after day passed. Doctors remained pessimistic. One afternoon, Angela overheard 2 nurses discussing hospice arrangements. Her heart sank. Everything around her seemed to point toward the same conclusion. It was over. But every time fear tried to overwhelm her, she felt a small voice inside saying, "Keep praying." So she did. One night around 2 a.m., Angela sat alone in the room. The hospital was unusually quiet. Most visitors had gone home. Even the nurses seemed distant. She looked at Michael and whispered another prayer. Then she opened her Bible. Her eyes fell on a verse she hadn't planned to read. With God, all things are possible. She read it again and again. Something stirred inside her. Not certainty, not confidence, but hope. A tiny spark of hope. And sometimes that's all you need. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A nurse entered the room looking confused. She checked Michael's chart twice, then 3 times. Finally, she left. A few minutes later, she returned with another nurse. Together, they reviewed the monitors. Angela noticed them exchanging puzzled looks. "Is everything okay?" she asked. One of the nurses smiled slightly. "Actually, we're seeing some improvements." Angela's heart skipped a beat. What kind of improvements? Small ones. It wasn't much, but it was the first positive thing anyone had said in days. By afternoon, doctors ordered additional tests. The results surprised everyone. Several indicators that had been moving in the wrong direction had suddenly stabilized. Nobody could explain why. Dr. Peterson remained cautious. "We're not out of danger yet," he warned. But Angela saw something she hadn't seen before, a crack in the wall of hopelessness. She thanked God. Then she kept praying. Over the next several days, more changes occurred. Michael's fever dropped. His oxygen levels improved. His kidneys began functioning better. Every improvement seemed small on its own, but together they painted a different picture. The man everyone expected to die was fighting his way back. The medical staff remained amazed. One doctor called it unusual. Another called it remarkable. A third simply shook his head and said, "I've never seen anything quite like this." Angela knew what she believed. Prayer was changing things. 2 weeks later, the moment finally arrived. Michael opened his eyes. Angela had stepped out briefly to grab a cup of coffee. When she returned, a nurse met her in the hallway. "Get in here," she said excitedly. Angela rushed into the room. Michael was awake, weak, confused, but awake. For a moment she couldn't speak. Neither could he. They simply looked at each other. Then tears filled both their eyes. "Hey," he whispered. Angela laughed and cried at the same time. "Hey yourself!" She grabbed his hand. "I thought I lost you." Michael squeezed her fingers. "So did I." The recovery wasn't immediate. There were setbacks, difficult days, physical therapy, months of healing. But Michael continued improving, slowly but steadily, until eventually he was discharged from the hospital. The day he walked through the front door of their home felt like a miracle. Neighbors lined the street. Friends gathered outside. People cheered as he arrived. Many of them had been praying from the beginning. That evening, the family gathered around the dinner table. For the first time in months, everyone was together. Laughter filled the room. Gratitude filled their hearts. At one point, their youngest granddaughter climbed into Michael's lap. "Grandpa," she asked, "why did everyone keep praying for you?" The room grew quiet. Michael smiled. Then he answered, "Because sometimes people need help that only God can give." Years later, Dr. Peterson attended a community event where Michael was sharing his testimony. Afterward, he approached him. The doctor smiled. "I have to admit something." Michael laughed. "What's that?" The doctor shook his head. "When I told your wife there was no hope, I truly believed it." "I know. I still can't explain what happened." Michael looked at him kindly. "That's okay." The doctor raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because not everything that matters can be explained." The doctor stood silently for a moment. Then he nodded. Perhaps for the first time he understood. Today, Michael and Angela still tell their story whenever they have the chance. Not because they want attention, not because they deny the importance of medicine. In fact, they're grateful for every doctor and nurse who cared for him. But they tell their story because someone out there may be facing their own impossible situation. Someone may be sitting in a hospital room right now. Someone may be staring at a diagnosis. Someone may have been told there is no hope. If that's you, remember this. A doctor's report is important, but it is not always the final word. There are moments when circumstances seem impossible, moments when fear is overwhelming, moments when every door appears closed. Yet hope has a way of surviving even in the darkest places. And prayer has a way of reaching places that human hands cannot. Michael's story doesn't mean every prayer is answered exactly as we want. Life doesn't always unfold according to our plans, but it does remind us of something powerful. Never underestimate what can happen when faith refuses to quit, because sometimes when the world says it's over, God is still writing the next chapter. And sometimes just when everyone says there is no hope, a miracle begins. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone in need of encouragement and hope during a difficult situation. Then subscribe to our channel for more uplifting, inspirational content and visit our store to view our journals, planners, and books. The link is in the description.